So, as I said to you and as I promised, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I mentioned in the suggestion area that the guys actually at 11-bit Studios said, along with what's his name? I'm trying to find his name. His name is Seth. Oh God. Game Fox and some other people. Seth Linden. So what we were discussing is the land dreadnought. You following me, Mage?
Yeah.
So what I said is that if we're gonna make the endless scenario even more interesting, get this. We're going to go from creating a generator tower all the way back to a situation where you start with a land dreadnought and you do the excavation and then you create the city from there. Now, my choice of how it would, or not, I wouldn't say my choice, but my interpretation of how this could work is a case where you have a city that has not been actually constructed, or it's an area where you start in. So you're in a land dreadnought and it's moving in a particular area. It stops in that area and you have to give it coal and other resources as maintenance to keep moving. And then you would have a few of the technologies from Winterhome, the refugees, and the arcs, and make a new home built into it. So you'd have a mobile outpost cabin inside the land dreadnought, a beacon cabin inside the land dreadnought, maybe a radio signaling tower, a special large gathering trade um, vehicle bay inside the land dreadnought itself. And you can also have a special
Yeah.
scout ability where scouts are able to actually, as I like to put it, be able to survey the area before the land dreadnought gets there. So let's say, for example, we're traveling from um, Winterhome and we're going past New London, or in the area where New London is, and we're traveling and we're trying to find somewhere to set up our city. What we would do is first we would decide, are we going to scuttle the land dreadnought and transform it into a generator tower, or are we going to find blueprints within the Frostland and then convert those blueprints into a new generator tower, and then we'd have a situation similar to Winterhome where we'd have to create a special engineering bay to research equipment to keep the generator tower working properly. In addition to
Here's
that, huh?
where is your video? I can't get a hold of it.
It's up right now. Aren't you seeing it?
Uh,
Let me send it to you.
uh,
There you go. Yeah. So as I'm saying, with the land dreadnought being created, we have the land dreadnought as the base of where you start from. So you don't start in a crater. You are forced to actually create your own crater, build your own city from the ground up out of that crater, and you have within 100 days to actually do it. 100 to 120 days to actually create your city within the crater, and if you don't meet that requirement, then the storm comes and your city gets wiped out. What do you think about that?
100 days to build your city, and then it gets wiped out. Huh.
Because on average, it should take you approximately 100 days to get your city up and running. So that's the option if you want to settle. Now, if you want to stay mobile and be like a nomad, you can keep the land dreadnought, upgrade the land dreadnought, and you could then, by upgrading the land dreadnought, add certain technologies to it. Like we know based on the lore that it's virtually impossible to build structures outside of a crater because of the weather conditions. Weather conditions prevent any form of building to
So
take place.
basically,
Huh?
theoretically speaking, say you build the town, but you want to leave that town running, and you only take like 200 people or this or that to go to another town, start
That
up new embers.
that's what I'm getting into
Isn't
now.
that possible?
Yes, it is because
Like the storm destroying everything, that kind of makes things feel a tad hopeless. If you're leaving, like, say you build a town, then you leave to another to make a new one, I say that would have more, how do I say, like you're populating the world again. You're healing it,
That's actually
allowing humanity.
allows humanity to continue, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I was getting at. I was saying, what I'm really saying is that you can use the land dreadnought as a mobile home, and you can also search for blueprints within the Frostland. So you have the land dreadnought as your main base, and then you have something like another city capable area to build in. So there'll be areas that pop up on the map saying that you can build a city here, or you can choose to create it. And then what they could do from that is create the Craig's map and the new whole map and the large area map. So you have choices as to where you want to set up your city, and depending on where you decide to go, you get certain buffs like the area is larger or the area might be smaller. And then after you establish that city or you find that area from the surveying teams, which would be a scout ability, you can then decide, am I going to scuttle my vehicle or keep it and then use it to establish another town? Or am I going to use it as an exploratory vehicle and have my city and then go elsewhere? But to do that, you'd have to upgrade it similar to what they did in Winterhome. So what I'm,
Basically, it's like an endless game.
yeah,
Basically, um, you can, like, you build your dreadnought, you get all the resources you need, then you take like what you need to make a new city. You leave it, and you leave it the other city in someone capable's hand. It can open trade if possible, if they're close enough together, yada yada,
yeah.
and a few other things. So it's possible theoretically. Like if they do this,
If they actually
like what?
if they actually manage to get it to work, like get the trade mechanics in, and they actually find a way to actually allow you to send, because they've done this already for the arc scenario. So what I'm really getting at is that they can actually do this, and if they manage to make it a reality, then that would increase gameplay, because it will force you to spend more time in managing both cities as a captain, and they could add in a radio tower to bridge the gap between the two cities, because if you notice, all the buildings in some way connect to
Yeah.
communication. If the beacon goes down, you can't scout for resources and you can't explore the Frostland. If the radio tower stops working, you can't communicate with other people in the Frostland during storm conditions. And I'm saying, if you decide to be a nomad, right, and you decide to explore the Frostland without actually setting up anything, then we can look at Tesla's technology of the electronic force field that prevents the storm from destroying a city. You remember that?
We would have like this would be a very cool if they actually were able to pull this off.
Because when I was checking the Discord, somebody actually took it up on themselves to ask, and the dev said this would make for a great sequel. So Seth Linden said, "Yeah, I agree. Once you nail down the basic survival stuff, it should make sense that the city should develop further. The more people settle down, having different districts in the city, establishing social hierarchy." And he said that would be cool. Because the next thing is that if you check the refugee city, they explored the class-based system mechanic. What's your take on that?
Class-based system. It was interesting. I just wish there was like a little more tension in the air. You know, like it was like I wish there was more like like you had to play more of a referee. Like you know what I mean? Like sorry, I just love political dramas and stuff like that. But yeah,
That's all right.
like like how like I'm taking a page out of Tropico, but why don't they people just have elections and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So they could set up a podium in front of the dreadnought, or you could have a new building called the election building. And then from that building, you could determine whether or not you want to have the elections rigged, or you want to be have it be a situation where they can democratically elect a leader, but you only get access to that if you have advanced past one city. So you would move from being one small settlement or village to becoming a actual small nation within the Frostland. And as you were saying earlier, through that mechanic, you'd be able to populate the earth, and you might encounter other races or other hostile people along the way, and they could steal resources from you. So you could have raiders showing up. They actually explored that in the refugees when the lords were left outside the city, and they came in and raided resources and left. So that's something that they could look on. So the main things that I really wanted to get at was the land dreadnought ability as a permanent home or a semi-permanent home that you can then keep. But here's the thing, Mage. If you're gonna keep the land dreadnought, you're gonna also have to keep it somewhere. So you're gonna need a garage, if you get what I mean. So a garage is gonna have to be
Yeah, but
there.
we probably.
So what's your take on that? What do you think about the garage?
Interesting. Oh, choice or duty. Survive the preacher here, which has the public sentences on, safe to far. I will consider your words.
So I'm thinking that maybe the um the generator itself, not the gener I'm thinking that maybe they could have a situation where, in addition to having the city itself being constructed, you could also have smaller areas. So you have the land dreadnought, you have a new build area, and to add a little spice to that, they also give you something like a small area to visit outside the city. So like an outpost region, if you get what I mean. What do you think about that? Like an area outside of the city, something like a little outpost where you can explore and probably set up certain mechanics, and then from there you
Yeah,
decide.
it's cool. It's cool. Cool overall.
But what?
What you're it's it's very cool what you're proposing.
Because I mean, if they manage to actually pull this off and add in more content in terms of like the DLC, the last Automaton DLC sounds like an expansion pack that could probably working at work.
Last Automaton DLC? What are you talking about? The
What it
expansion.
Let me see if I think I might have been getting it wrong. What did they have for the expansion?
Let me save and go back to the expansion. They have the Rift, which was a new feature,
Yeah.
and they they have the Last Autumn and Project Tila
Oh,
Adji
it's the
Dos.
last autumn. That's it. I think yeah. That's the error I made. It's the last autumn. So the last autumn sounds to me like it's the last time that it was actually autumn. I don't know. But whatever they do, it has to be a case where the the DLC allows you to explore more of the Frostland. There's some people saying shut up and take my money. However,
Uh,
check this out. Here's another thing that I thought about in terms of gameplay. What do you think about discovery and exploration? So you have a game that's a city builder, city survival game builder that also goes in the direction of finding and discovering things, and then those things that you discover can either enhance your civilization or cause harm to it if not implemented properly, or if you don't have the technology to actually take it back to your city, it could harm the scout. So you have to leave it there, and if
no, basically. Oh, excuse me. I have to turn off my overdrive.
That's all
But
right.
basically, I think it would be like a good idea to have some risk for the like the scouts, other than if they get too close to the storm, they die.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I was thinking that maybe the scouts could enter into encampment mode. So here's another interesting concept I had for DLC. You start out with an automaton, as I said before, and you can either transform the automaton into a city, or you can keep it and you can search for plans as to how to create a new generator out of one of the Victorian land dreadnoughts that is within range if you explore the region properly. And from there, once you find the technology, you can then use within 100 days to excavate the area. In addition to that, once it's excavated, you can create a garage, store it, hunker down for the first few storms, and then after, you can go on a massive expedition into somewhere far off within the Frostland and either encounter an NPC city like New London, or you can actually encounter two NPC cities in a new region like the Ark and the New Manchester, similar to a setting like Anno. What's your
Hmm.
take on that?
NPC cities like Anno. Like, so they're in the same map, or like they're just like a city that in they're in the Frostlands.
Cities in the Frostland that you can
I can
encounter.
see that. I can see that working very nicely. It would be like opening places to trade resources.
Right.
Oh, I know we'll be buying Steam cores.
And then you can either like take over areas by sending a team of people over there. I don't know if they want to engage in certain kind of mechanics like
No, I don't think anyone would be prepared for combat unless it was absolutely necessary.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. It's a case where it's something that you it would be a necessity to hold a certain area, but it could be a mechanic that they can investigate it and see if it works. And with the ability to construct new cities within the Frostland or excavate areas, these these new areas that you can excavate, they can actually have varying elements. So they have hazards in them. So like the rifts map, if you excavate the area for a while, you might encounter that after excavating, the land kind of falls apart, and there are certain areas that are exposed and certain areas that are above or below, and you have to construct bridges in order to reach those areas. And in that case, then you have to prepare anyways because you've already excavated the area. So once you've decided to excavate an area, if you decide to keep the land dreadnought, you can hunker down and then keep working on the area, right? So you can keep working, or if you decide to scuttle it or anything like that, you can leave. So scuttle and keep it and keep the tower and transform it into a generator tower will force you to stay in that area permanently, not scuttling it and keeping the land dreadnought, finding the resources to create a new generator tower can actually allow you to be versatile or multifaceted in terms of deployment and redeployment. So if the area becomes too complex, a situation like Winter Homes event, where you have to secure a large amount of resources from the surrounding areas in order to sustain yourself to move for a certain amount of days to avoid the storm. So here are the requirements for the land dreadnought to actually be able to sustain life. 15 steam cores, 5,000 resources in terms of steel, about 30,000 or 5,000 coal for approximately 10 to 20 days, depending on how they want to work it out. 5,000 food to sustain the civilization for a month, and at least 5,000 or 10,000 wood, and additional space for cabins. That's what the resources would use. So you have regular life support systems, then you'd have cabins for specific purposes, scout cabin, hunter's cabin, outpost, mobile outpost vehicle cabin, um, engineering bay cabin, and regular life support and unskilled worker cabin, all within the land dreadnought itself. And then you'd have to have an engineering team working on the land dreadnought continuously of about 5 people to monitor the land dreadnought generator core to keep it running properly. And so they
I
would,
can see that.
huh? You could see it.
I can see that happening.
So with that now, you're able to traverse the Frostland, and when you reach a certain area or before you leave out, you discover a new resource or a machine crashed in the snow, and it's a crawler. And then you add that to the outpost garage bay cabin. And so from that cabin, you can launch a, let's see, what do you call it now? You can launch a outpost team to send out about 3 teams within the Frostland to gather resources from areas once the scouts pick it up. So the scouts go to an area and they find a wooded forest. The engineers would then be able, the outpost team would then be able to, um, as they call it in Total War Tiller, enter encampment mode somewhere within the Frostland, and then send out about 3 teams from that vehicle to then gather the resources, and then they carry the resources back to the vehicle, and then once the vehicle is full, it would go back to the land dreadnought, deposit it, then come back, meet the outpost teams that are waiting for them there, gather additional resources, and the system continues. And then the weather forecasting cabin, I think I mentioned it earlier, would keep monitoring the conditions within the Frostland to advise you when the storm decides to pick up. Now, if the storm decides to come, you have one of 2 options. Construct a electronic storm repulsion wall to prevent the storm from actually destroying your land dreadnought and your people, or you can engage in a migration mechanic and move from that particular area within the Frostland and find somewhere else. How do
See,
the Go on? I want you to tell me what you think about all those things that I've just said.
um, um, honestly, I think it works. Honestly, like trying to build a generator, getting the resources needed, collecting, like establishing a town, like a generator and its home. It just works really well. Well, overall, well, I approve of your idea. I don't have any complaints.
Because I'm seeing that this game can transform into something that would make tropical. I know. Um
Not entirely. Tropical had plenty of differences, but
I know.
like I wonder how many players will make so many maps. Like they get good and ready, they take all the resources they need to set up a generator, then they leave the old town behind in good hands, and yada yada. From there, it kind of works.
Yeah, so you could have like first officers that would then monitor your cities and keep them going. But 11-bit Studios said that they were actually exploring the possibility of cities having a form of like character system where,
Government.
yeah, like a government where certain individuals would have posts within the city, but they were saying that they didn't want it to take away from the game's experience or something of the sort.
Mm, true. I can see why they would hesitant to do that. Like maybe in the social sense, the sense like you'd have leaders that help keep this and this stable.
Yeah, so you could use the Book of Laws as a new mechanic to create something I would call it like a leader mechanic, if you get what I mean. Not like you can create leaders in the sense that, hey, these guys are going to be in charge of the city now, and they call the shots and so forth. And you have to listen to them, or else if you don't listen to them, these things probably won't work. So you
Yeah, it
have,
would cause more work.
yeah, so you know, with that ability being added in, you now have the ability as the captain to explore other areas, but you have to talk back to your main city, and you can switch between the characters. And if you don't do things properly, the that city that you were once at, they could mutiny, and then you have a civil war on your hands, and you can
Ooh,
choose.
that would be bloody.
Yeah, and you can actually choose to go back and fight the civil war, or you can keep moving on. So technically, you're banished, but with a land dreadnought and a lot of people inside of it. So I'm thinking the total population for the land dreadnought, based on game lore and the scenario, could be
Remember,
approximately,
we're going to a new places, like probably like 100 to 200 people max.
or maybe about like, we could probably look at it being, because in the lore, it was able to carry approximately 500 to 600 people. So if we plan it right, we could have the 500 to 600 people working at the land dreadnought site, but then you can have smaller sites surrounding the land dreadnought, or the area surrounding the land dreadnought being like a small village or a workstation area where you repair equipment for the land dreadnought, you manufacture the walls. So the land dreadnought could then,
Yeah, but like the winter health scenario, it kind of worked because you were evacuating everyone because the generator was failing.
yeah,
Failing. Like if you're going out to a new land, like having that population already, it would kind of be a significant drain. Like if you took most of the people, like even 100 or something people, there may not be enough people to run the infrastructure. So taking about 200 people would make more sense.
yeah, but remember we have automatons.
Like with us, like you get like they could run the city when people
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm
leave.
thinking. I'm thinking that the automatons could do most of the work, and we could have like a skeleton crew monitoring the city, similar to the arcs.
Yeah, and people could come to the cities while you're away and fill up the differences.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. And then, in order to keep things working properly, we can have a radio tower on top of one of the mountains or any high elevated area to act as like
Like I
a,
could see every map having like a tower station for everything. Like
yeah,
you build one, it's like it makes up a giant communication network. In
right.
theory, like in Anoid, you could like hop between cities through your radio communications.
That's what I'm thinking. So with
If
that,
they have small like you remember those jet boats you keep running into the Frostland? You know those boats that crash for some reason?
yeah.
You could have those as resource transfers.
Yes, there we go. There we go. So those things could be like little trade stations that could go between the cities, and whenever things get rough, then you could actually keep them. So the when the land dreadnought is in motion. So like when it's moving, you can switch from ground-based scouting to air-based scouting. So you would have a scout team that will be in the air flying alongside the dreadnought, and every day things kind of slow down, but you could see the dreadnought moving. So I don't remember, but there's this game where you're constantly moving in this vehicle. They could probably try that as a mini game within a mini game, and you could get updates from the people within the land dreadnought about what's going on. And I'm also thinking that when you create the walls, the deployable walls, they should also be able to be redeployed. So you can pick them up, carry them with you, and when you reach a situation where you can't necessarily move, you have to stay put, you can deploy that wall, and then you can then look about actually fixing the situation. So I'm going to list all the new features I think would make the DLC so much interesting. A weather observation cabin within the land dreadnought, a scout cabin within the land dreadnought. That they could be mixed or they could be the same thing. A outpost cabin for communication with outpost teams within the Frostland, a hunter's cabin within the land dreadnought. Um, After that, we can look at an engineering bay. After the engineering bay, we can look at engineering rooms and basic housing facilities for citizens and unskilled labor, a child education area that can be used for both medical and health, a med bay, life support systems within the land dreadnought, a internal electronic shield to protect the land dreadnought from storm conditions as a later on advancement to allow the land dreadnought to travel in the storm if necessary, depending on the severity of the storm. So variations in storm, as I said earlier, and if the storm is severe and the weather forecasting team says that, Captain, we cannot travel through this, the land dreadnought will then stop and the walls will be deployed immediately. And the land dreadnought can then hunker down behind the walls that are electrically charged by the land dreadnought's tower. And you have to.
But as a consequence, it like doubled the fuel consumption.
Yes, there we go. That's it. At no point in time it's easy. And so you have to
We
get.
have to make it like we can't make it easy for the players, but we have to make sure we have to scale according to people's requested difficulties. For me, like I always go easy economic, like medium or hard on the others all the time. That's how I am.
I see.
Like
So maybe
so,
we can have maybe they could have varying levels of difficulty for the game itself. So
yeah, but it like they already do. It's just they need to match it accordingly.
yeah, so they could match it accordingly to, so if somebody chooses easy, the storms aren't too hard, you have a lot of resources, you have more steam cores, you have more people in the land dreadnought, less
Oh, and the
malfunction. Yeah, or then
environmental factors.
right. So you can also have environmental factors around that as well. So I'm thinking all of the features I mentioned, along with Seat Linden's community and what's the word? Community and uh societal mechanics, it would make the game a lot more interesting for players, because there would be a lot of mechanics that could allow you to explore various options. You can use the Book of Laws for various things. You can have new transportations. So I have a view of the Frostland on the screen right now. And what I'm saying about this is that this map can change. And so when a land dreadnought is traveling across the map, there is a crawler that is traveling in front of it, usually a couple miles ahead of it or so, and that crawler is constantly checking the ice sheet or the ground to make sure that it is hard enough for the land dreadnought or strong enough for the land dreadnought to cross it. Now, if the land is not stable, what happens is that the crawler will then tell the captain of the land dreadnought that he has to now find a way to secure the land or go around or stop, enter encampment mode and build a bridge and then deconstruct that bridge. And that bridge can take
I
a.
don't think they'll deconstruct the bridge. I think they'll just leave it.
Yeah, they could
Make
probably leave it.
then, but you'd have to leave an automaton to keep it from collapsing from the top.
So you might lose something, but you gain something in the long term. So you can travel back in that direction if necessary.
Pretty much.
So
Like,
go on.
this game, it's never gonna be easy. This game, so it's gonna be interesting and everything that's involved.
So if they're capable of implementing the ideas I have, if they can do it, then
Your ideas are innovative, but remember, this could like what you're proposing could like be absolutely without a shadow of a doubt its own game.
that's the whole point. Oh my God. So I'm looking at the DLC, the Tavag whatever it is, the TVADG whatever. Remember that thing you're telling me about? I'm seeing something like an automaton or some kind of vehicle in it. So I'm trying to see it properly. Let me go on Steam. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull up Steam and see if I can find the image of it. Uh, so I have to wait until Friday, Monday to actually buy the DLC. But I don't. Do you know when the sale ends?
I think September the 2nd, if I recall correctly. My memory's bad
Okay,
on it.
okay. As I was asking, because my thing was giving me a little problem, so I couldn't access it.
But it's like only like a $4 to $5 discount though.
Still means. I think I have it in my cart. Yes, I do. I have the season pass in my cart already, so I just need to purchase it for myself now. So I'm gonna check it out. Look at it again. See, this thing is giving me a little bit of a right. So looking at the DLC now. Yes, so it looks like a land dreadnought of the sort or some form of vehicle. So maybe that could be the secret project or another project where you explore somewhere else. And the Last Autumn as well. Those are two DLCs that might have some interest. They sound like new scenarios. But if my thing sounds like a whole game by itself, it could be a sequel, or they can add it as a mechanic. Because I'm thinking, what's the sense of making a new game where you could probably try something like what Anno does? They create content and then they keep releasing content for their game. As I mean, you have the base game, which is of Anno 18, what is it? Anno 1880 or something? The one they came up with the other day. You remember it?
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I'm struggling to recall what you're talking about
Yeah,
exactly.
Anno 1800.
Oh, 800. That old one? I have never played that one.
It's pretty good. They actually came up with some extra DLC for it just the other day with this huge new location. So I'm thinking maybe they could actually turn that new DLC or I'm saying that they could probably use or look at that for inspiration to keep on adding content.
Hmm.
So but that's about it for now, man. So I'm gonna chat to you tomorrow. I'm gonna go get some rest and deal with some other stuff. All right.
Tomorrow, what time?
I'll send you a message. I'll let you know if anything. All right.
Oh, understood. Sorry if I called you too many times.
Nah, that's okay, man. That's all right. That's
I'm
all
a
right.
bit neurotic. I panicked when I was like, he called.